We start with the Birds. And Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni both spoke at the Combine on Tuesday. And I've been sitting on a few things that Howie Roseman said for a bit now, trying to figure out exactly what he meant. And look, full transparency, there's a chance I'm reading way too much into it, but that's how my brain works. So why don't we actually start things off by listening to Howie Roseman explain sort of his mentality throughout the offseason.
Well, I could talk about this team, not going back to 2017. We have a lot of guys who I think are in the prime of their careers under long-term contracts. Not saying that team didn't, who are kind of in this 26, 27, 28-year-old range. And so really we have to do whatever we can to make sure that we keep this window open for as long as possible. The most important season is this one coming up, 2025, and doing whatever we can to maximize that. But we have to get creative to make sure that we're keeping as many of our good players as we can. I sat up here last year and I said that's going to include playing young players. And I think that's going to be a huge part of what we are going forward because we're fortunate enough to have a lot of good players who are making a lot of money.
Now, he expanded on that and talked about how the fans, well, you got to be patient with me a little bit, all right? It may look different. Some of the moves that we may have to make may not be what are necessarily on other people's minds. It's probably not going to look like maybe the conventional wisdom thinks it should look like. So this is where my brain goes. Knowing Howie Roseman, and the GM that he is. Some are saying he's not just the best general manager in football. He may be the best general manager in all of sports. And he knows that that's being said about him. He knows that this is a copycat league and there are a bunch of eyes on the gold standard, which is now the Philadelphia Eagles. So everyone's watching his every move and everyone's listening to every word said. So when he goes out and publicly announces that, hey, Eagles fans, I need some time here to operate. I need time to go to work. Is he playing the game? Does he have stuff brewing? Does he honestly mean it? Because let's be honest. If you were playing poker with Howie Roseman, do you think he's showing his hand? Is he going to show you what hand he was dealt, or is he going to lie? Is he going to play the game? So now mentally you're wondering, does he have something that can beat me? Does he have a hand that is unbelievable? So it has me thinking. Here's my question at 215-592-9494. Should we take Howie Roseman's words for face value? Or do you think the outstanding GM that he is, there's something else going on behind the scenes? And there's no way in hell that he's just going to announce, this is how I'm going to attack this offseason. Give me time. I need space. I need room to work. It feels a little weird to me. And I say this all in a positive light, by the way. Okay, I say this all because I believe Howie is so good at what he does. I believe Howie never sleeps and Howie is always on the prowl. So it's just strange because in what universe is this dude just going to sit on his hands and just let this naturally play out where he's going to draft young kids and he's just going to ask the young kids to go ball? I don't know. That doesn't scream to me the way Howie Roseman is going to go into a following season after winning a championship when losing a ton of great talent on the defensive line. And then, oh, by the way, Myles Garrett is so loud and obnoxious about how he wants to be on a contending team and wants to have a real shot of winning a championship. I just feel something's up. In a good way. This is Howie zigging when everybody expects him to zag. And that's what makes him so unique, and that's what makes him beautiful to have in our front office. But when he initially started to describe exactly what he wanted to do this offseason, there was a part of me that accepted it. And then there I was staring at my ceiling at around 2:30 a.m. like the sicko that I am, thinking about Howie Roseman at the Combine. It's gross that that's how my mind works, but that's how my mind works. And I start to wonder, what the hell are you doing, Brodes? Are you actually believing that? Are you actually going to take his words for face value? When you know this is one of the most savvy men in pro football? He's got something up his sleeve. I'm telling you right now, Howie Roseman is on the move. He's on the prowl. And there is a method to the madness, okay? Because there's only one way Howie Roseman knows how to go to work. And that's with the full head of steam. And I highly doubt he's just going to sit on his hands and say, young kids, go have at it. I know we have some talent that's getting paid some good money. All right, we're just going to slap in some youth. After already having so much youth, now is the time to know that you have a good base. You have Quinyon, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith. You got a young crew that's already willing to go to war out there on the gridiron. This is when you can go to that second level. This is when you can actually look forward to another layer to this team and doing something monstrous to shake up the whole NFL world again. All I'm saying is, I believe there is something to his way of describing the offseason. He is the best general manager in football. Every single GM is trying to duplicate exactly what Howie Roseman does. So I highly doubt he is going to stand at a podium. He's going to look at everybody in the face and just lay out exactly what his blueprint is to a T so everybody knows. In fact, it's the complete opposite. But here's what I won't put past him. Maybe he wants me to feel this way. He's that much of a genius, he's making me debate myself about what this really means. But he's ours, and that's the great thing. 215-592-9494. That is the phone number to participate. Would really like to hear from you tonight. Should we take Howie Roseman's words for face value? Do you think there's something brewing, or do you actually believe maybe there really is a world where he does have to play it this way? He's not playing any games, and he's just being honest. It's just hard for me knowing that this organization is all about competitive advantages, and they never want to tip their hands, and they never want to give anybody any sort of insight. All of a sudden, in Indianapolis, now is going to be the time where he just lays it out on the table for all to hear. So I'm all in on thinking Howie Roseman is going to do something to wow us. 215-592-9494. That's where we get started. Luke, I'm curious your thoughts here as we open up this show. Is it possible I'm losing my mind? Is it possible I'm overanalyzing it? And do you trust Howie Roseman's words when he discusses patience?
I do think you're losing your mind. Honestly, I do think Howie Roseman's even in your head a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So maybe that's what Howie wanted this whole time. Your reaction, he wants the other GMs and the other teams to have the same reaction of, can we really trust this guy? Do we know what he's really... Is he going to do that? There's no way he does that. What if he does do that? What if he does something else? What if he could do this? Next thing you know, they don't know what they want to do. They're going to start following what Howie wants to do. It may not fit their team, but they're just doing it because Howie's doing it. So with Howie and some of his other comments that he's made at the Combine, it's so early in free agency and the offseason that it could change in an instant. You trade for Myles Garrett, everything changes. Mm-hmm. Myles Garrett goes to the Commanders. He goes to the Packers. It probably changes again. So I really don't know what to think of Howie's comments. I mean, the whole relying on young guys to play, I really don't think, I don't believe that.
Okay.
I do think draft-wise we got very lucky the last couple of years, so he has the luxury of saying that with, Cooper and Quinyon and then Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith really showing out and being the young guys he can trust. I don't think he's going to rely on that again. I think he's going to have to make some moves here, some kind of major defensive move, whether it's Myles Garrett or not. And I don't think he's going to be that patient. I think he's going to stay aggressive. I think he's going to realize, like, hey, we have a window here. We may have to have a cap casualty of Darius Slay or somebody else, and maybe you don't bring back Milton Williams or Josh Sweat or even Becton, maybe not Bond, but I think he makes some kind of a big move to where this whole comment seems a bit ridiculous. I could be in my own head too. How it could be in my head I don't know, because it is like I'm talking myself into it because I'm thinking of him in the past of what he's done. He's never really sat on his hands. He's always done something. Like, Saquon Barkley was one of the first free agency signings last year. So clearly, like, they were ready to go. Like, he was being aggressive. He wanted Saquon. And I'm pretty sure there was a report that they were about to sign Xavier McKinney a couple minutes after, but the Packers upped the guaranteed money, so he went there instead. But then he bounces back and gets C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So he's always going to be aggressive. Even in the draft, when he moved up to get Cooper DeJean, that was their guy. They wanted him. He kept falling. They moved up and got him. So the patience thing for Howie never really makes sense. The only thing I can think of is why he wants to be patient is that he knows that the Jalen Carter extension is looming.
Yeah, but that's something that...
That's next year.
Money with Howie Roseman isn't even real. It's all fake. He can do whatever he wants.
I'm so confident going into free agency, we're going to have like $30 million in cap space.
Money is irrelevant.
We're going to wake up one day just like, how many contracts did he restructure? Wait, how much cap space do we have?
Yeah,
it's going to be one of those.
Money is irrelevant when it comes to Howie, and I say that seriously. I'm not even joking around. It does not matter what you see on Spot Track. It does not matter what you see online. Guaranteed for this guy, that guy, void years, this, that. Stop the nonsense. Stop pretending you know what you're doing when you're reading this stuff. It doesn't make sense, but Howie Roseman makes it make sense, and he squeezes it all in to the salary cap. The money is irrelevant. You mentioned a word there, Luke, that is extremely important to this conversation, and it's the fact that there is a window right now to maximize where this roster is. And while there is a lot of young players here, and we like to think that this is going to last for a good amount of time, and there are plenty of reasons to believe that's the case, because we got a stud quarterback, because Jalen Hurts is a dog, because Jalen Hurts is legit as hell, and it starts with the QB. So yes, there are reasons to believe like this isn't going to just shut down the way it did after 2017. But the truth is, there is a nice window right now with the way Saquon's playing, with this offensive line clicking, with the way Vic Fangio has created such a phenomenal foundation on the defensive side. You're just going to play the patient game if you are Howie Roseman right now. In what universe? He never does. So if this is the time to kick it into gear, to make a real statement to the league that we are the next squad that is constantly going to be battling for the Super Bowl legitimately, and we are the team in the NFC that is constantly punching their ticket in the Super Bowl, now would be the last time for Howie Roseman to just sit back on his hands and play the long game. He can do both. That's the greatness of who Howie Roseman is. He finds a way to still value the future, to still value what he can do in years to come, but also the now. And that's why I feel Howie Roseman asking for patience out of his fan base is all a smokescreen. I think he's playing the game. He's never going to be honest with you. They do not care one lick about telling you the truth anytime at all, when it's the regular season, when it's post-game press conferences, no matter what. I mean, A.J. Brown's the one breaking the news that, Nick Sirianni, he didn't even call that play. Me and Jalen Hurts decided to do it on our own after Nick Sirianni already took the bullet for the squad. So, I mean, they never are open and honest with us. I believe he wants other GMs to think he's being patient, but in reality, he's got the phone up to his ear and he's ready to take charge and make some serious calls. 215-592-9494. Should we take Howie Roseman's words for face value? Let's go to the phone. Let's go to Alex. You're on WIP. Hey, Alex.
Hey, how we doing? How we doing, bros?
Good, man. What's going on?
I gotta ask. So, what going into next season? What do you think the greatest strength of the Philadelphia Eagles is from a personnel standpoint? When we line up across from the other team, what is the one thing that gives us the greatest advantage to win football games?
Offensively speaking or defensively?
Let's go both sides of the football.
Yeah, I mean, both sides. It probably is both anyway. Is their offensive line and the run game offensively, and then their defensive line, I'd say.
Right. So, but what's curious though, I agree with you, offensive line. I think Stoutland is he's kind of foolproof in the way that he handles his business. But when we look at the defensive line, what's wild is, historically, we've been a great defensive line franchise for the past 20 years, and we can rattle off names. But this year specifically, at what point were you sold on this defensive line? I'm telling you right now, it wasn't until deep in that stretch run where I looked around and said, "Man, I got Jalen Hunt making plays. I got Nolan Smith making plays. I got Jordan Davis actually getting after the quarterback a little bit, right?" Like, this wasn't – I guess my point is that this progressed throughout the season. It wasn't a situation where we saw the bones of this team in week 5, 6, 7, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's fair. Yeah.
So I guess when I look at it, number one, I think that we're going to be able to replace – defensive pass rush. I think that what we've been lacking for maybe 10 years is a secondary. So now we got two rookies in the secondary who are absolutely lights out, who came in and played the position better than 90% of the guys at their position. When I look at the pass rush, I don't think the capital needs to be spent on a guy like Myles Garrett. I look at a franchise that's been able to draft defensive line capital for the past 10, 15, 20 years and figure it out in the second round and figure it out in the third round and figure it out in the fourth round. So, yeah, I think all the Myles Garrett talk, while it really looks good, and I think we're coming off a year where we grabbed the shiny new toy, which was Saquon Barkley, and look how it turned out.
But to your point, that is and thanks, Alex, I appreciate it. That is Myles Garrett. Saquon Barkley was equivalent to Myles Garrett, and I know this is a bad thing to say, considering you need to have an opinion on what to do here. I could live in a world where Howie Roseman does not get Myles Garrett, but to act as if they don't need it, or they can't have it, or they don't need to go that direction, this guy gets 16 sacks a year, and you're also applying that to be next to Jalen Carter. So it's a pick your poison type of problem, just like we saw with the offense. If you have to sell out to stop Saquon, you are screwed, because Jalen Hurts will throw dimes in the Super Bowl to torch you. And if you want to back off of loading the box, and if you want to back off of suffocating Saquon Barkley, then Saquon Barkley rips off 6, 7, 8 yards until he eventually has a 60-yard home run hit to the house. You're screwed. Myles Garrett next to Jalen Carter is an unstoppable force. I mean, it is really an impossible situation to figure out with the garbage offensive line play that is around the league. We're spoiled, and we get to witness Jeff Stoutland on a day-to-day basis. Most teams don't. So you get to look at Jalen Carter and Myles Garrett in the face. I don't care what the assets are, if you got to give up a first-round pick and pay him money and this and that. 16 sacks. Not 8. Not 9, not 10, which would be a very successful season. 16 sacks. I can't tell Howie Roseman that would be a foolish move or an idiotic idea to utilize your asset, because one thing that he's so good at, Howie, is he finds ways to get picks back. So whether you get comp picks, whether you move back in the second round to gain another pick later on, whether you move back certain draft picks to gain more capital in the next season, you use those picks to gain more capital. That's what Howie does so well. We're never really in trouble. When was the last time we've been in trouble with draft picks? Right? We don't get.
Didn't he set the record for the most draft day trades over the 3 days last year?
That wouldn't surprise me.
It was almost every single time we were on the clock, it was Howie has traded this pick, or the Eagles have traded this pick. Almost every single time.
Yeah, so that's what he does. He will find a way. He's good with that stuff. He's never going to screw the franchise up for years to come because of going out and applying pressure to go get Myles Garrett. Think about it. He had the worst signing, maybe, with Bryce Huff that we've seen in quite some time. He just won a Super Bowl with it. He can't destroy you and make such a brutal, flawed decision that's going to crush the Eagles' soul for years to come, especially if it's going out and snagging someone who walks into 16 sacks a season and wants to be in a winning organization. So that hunger, that determination to win a Super Bowl, it's real. And you know what? After a team that just won it gets a taste of that hunger again from an outside star coming into the NovaCare complex, I'm for it. I mean, I lean towards you got to pick up the phone and at least see what's going on here and have a real effort to potentially snag him. And if you don't, you don't. And if it's too much, it's too much. But there needs to be a real mindset of, hey, we're going to try and get this guy, because him and Jalen Carter together, it's an unstoppable force. It's Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown together as a 1-2 punch offensively. It's sickening to think about. 215-592-9494 as we get started on this Wednesday night. Here's my question for you. Should we take Howie's words for face value when he spoke at the Combine and he mentioned that the fans need to be patient with his approach? It's just hard for me to think that Howie Roseman, of all people, will be patient. That's not his DNA. That's not who he is. I think he has something up his sleeve. I do. Do you? 215-592-9494. I want you guys to listen to this 2-minute mashup, okay? This is courtesy of CBS Sports, and they were running through, again, now this is different. Weeks ago, there was a CBS senior writer who did something very similar. This is
Pete Prisco.
Yes, this is a totally different group on CBS Sports, and they did the Jalen Hurts or game. And take a listen. I'm sorry. I apologize, but it pisses me off, and I need you to be pissed off too, apparently. Here is the nonsense on Jalen Hurts.
I still think you go with the physical skill set that Trevor Lawrence has. He has a bigger arm. He's a better runner, which is a lot of what these evaluations are coming to, which is why Jalen Hurts wasn't a top 10 pick. He has intangibles that are off the charts, but I think from a player who you would want to go with and build around, if you asked anybody, all things were equal, you would go with Trevor Lawrence because next one.
Great. I don't even know why this one's included here, but Noah wants to ask Hurts or Jaden Daniels.
Oh, Jaden Daniels all day long.
Let's move on.
Let's bounce past that one.
Said about that one.
That one's easy.
Interesting though. Hurts or Drake May?
Oh, another easy one. I think
easy.
It's easy.
Drake May,
easy.
Easy, he said.
So 3 years from now, Drake May will be a better
If you
quarterback?
put Drake May on the Eagles with that roster, would he win a Super Bowl within 3 years? I think he would.
He wouldn't have won it this year, though.
Maybe not.
Wow, Danny's more
Maybe
of a Hurts
not.
hater than Pete.
Yeah,
How about Hurts or C.J. Stroud, who was great as a rookie, but then kind of took a step back this year?
I would take C.J. Stroud. I just think, again, a guy that can throw the football better. He doesn't run like them. You'd have to play in that offense. But I think if you get a run game, and he had it with Mixon this year, and have people healthy, I think he's going to be fine. His problem was his offensive line. You put C.J. Stroud behind that offensive line in Philadelphia, he's going to stand back there all day and pick you apart.
These are easy. It's C.J. Stroud all day long that you would take over Jalen Hurts.
Is Hurts or Brock Purdy, Danny? What do you think?
I see the same quarterback And I think these two are equivalents, which is why he's been able to have the success as he's had.
And here's the other thing about it. There's 5 elite quarterbacks in the National. 5. You know, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and now Jaden Daniels. There's 5. The next group,
what?
You can interchange all of them.
What?
You can put Jalen Hurts at 8, at 12, at 13. You could put him at 6. I think you could make an argument for all of them. But by sitting here saying Jalen Hurts is better than this, and this, I don't think you can sit here and say that. And
they all need to be fired. They all need to be fired.
That was insane.
Jaden Daniels, elite.
That was insane. Drake May?
Drake May.
Drake May.
Of those 5 elite quarterbacks, 1 has a Super Bowl. All these 5 elite quarterbacks, 1 has a Super Bowl. These teams can't beat Kansas City in an AFC a championship game. They can't beat them in a divisional round. Yet Jalen Hurts goes off against who they would say, and Spags is one of the best defensive coordinators. I'm not trying to knock that, but if you ask that panel how great Spags is, they're all going to say elite. And Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl twice pantsed him. Pantsed Spags. The hell's wrong with people, man? What's wrong with people?
That was insane. The CJ Stroud thing, the guy's like, oh, he was great as a rookie, but, if he just had a run game like the Eagles had, Joe Mixon had 1,000 yards in 14 games this year. They had a running game. They won a playoff game and then got dismantled by the Chiefs, who the Eagles dismantled, or I like your term, pantsed the Chiefs. I mean, what are we doing? How is Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy being the same quarterback could not make less sense? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know.
What are they talking about?
He put Jaden Daniels in the same conversation as Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes. Listen, I like Jaden Daniels.
He's a good quarterback.
Of course he's a good quarterback. You can't just put him after what Jalen Hurts has done in his career. You cannot put Jaden Daniels in a list with Lamar and Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen and then disrespect Jalen Hurts that way. It doesn't add up. And same with and I like CJ Stroud, another guy.
I like CJ Stroud too.
Yeah, but he's
not on Jalen Hurts' level. Now,
no.
Jalen Hurts, I'm perfectly okay with him being slotted as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL. That is fine to me. But when you put Jaden Daniels over him, and when you equate him to Trevor Lawrence, who might not even be on his team this year or next year, that's where you just got to stop. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. Trevor Lawrence has won, 1 playoff game and hasn't been back. What are we talking about?
I mean, listen.
Drake May, he said, he probably would not have won the Super Bowl this year.
Not probably. He would not have. You would not have won a championship with this same roster and Drake May.
What are you talking about?
I know,
Drake
dude.
May?
I know.
He was good. He's shown some flashes, but they're acting like he's going to be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL in a couple of years.
Nah. It's just garbage stuff out there. Let's go to Ziggy and Delco. Yo, Ziggy.
What's up, Brodes?
What's happening?
Dude, you got me fired up tonight. I actually wasn't even going to call in, but well, the last thing you talked about, I could pivot to that, but
sure.
You got me fired up about the Myles Garrett thing, man.
As in what? You want him or you don't want him?
No, I want him.
Yeah.
You really kind of. Well, I've always wanted him, obviously, but I think the thing you were talking about is just the idea of Myles Garrett and Jalen Carter together. I think that just fires me up, man. Like just that alone, like we already got the cornerbacks, we got the Reed Blankets, we got the CJ, we got that set up. I mean, just the combination of those two together, I don't know who's stopping that, because at the very least they're going to make the playoffs. And then you just unleash them, the whole game? Come on.
Yeah, nobody's stopping them. To answer your question, there's not a soul. You don't have enough bodies, and there's not enough talent in this league. Like, I even think if Jalen Carter and Myles Garrett went up against Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, I even think this offensive line at times might be in a little bit of a pickle. And that's no disrespect to this O-line. Maybe they would stop them. I don't know. This might be the only line in all of football that could. Nobody stops that. Not a soul, Ziggy.
Well, especially in the playoffs, too, because I'm thinking the playoffs. I think the Eagles are guaranteed. Listen, I'm not going to say Super Bowl, but definitely playoff spot next year. I'm just thinking, especially in the playoffs, if you're, they're playing 90% of the snaps together, like you're saying, I can't think of anyone that's going to stop them. Like we already got Cooper, we got Quinion. GJ. I mean, hopefully balling, and we got. I mean, I don't know N'Kobe Debo, but we're still okay back there. We got those two guys. I mean, I can't even imagine how many sacks we're going to go for.
I know. Yeah, 16 is what Myles Garrett. Thanks, Iggy. I appreciate your call. 16 is what Myles Garrett has without a Jalen Carter. And my guess is, if you had to choose between the two, you got to focus more on Myles Garrett. So think about what Jalen Carter can do. The reason why Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith and all these other guys ate, no disrespect to them, but it's because you had to double Jalen Carter and you had to focus your attention on Jalen Carter. And Jalen Carter is still a monster when that's the case. Imagine if the focus was on someone else. Dude, come on, man. I can't sit here and allow people to say we don't need him. Well, I get it. We don't need him from a technical standpoint. You got to do your homework. You got to try to acquire him, and it needs to be a real legitimate option. If you're Howie Roseman, you have to be on the prowl, like seriously on the prowl. And if it's too much, it's too much. I understand. There needs to be a real attempt to land him. I'll say that.